So I'll put a link in the video description below for the comparison video that I made recently of these. So this is going to be the actual review of the Focal Elear pair of full-size headphones. Now I've had these for a while now and there's just so much to talk about. I'll put a link into the written description, review actually, in the description, and that'll cover all the bases. So this is going to be much quicker than that, so I'm going to try and get all this out of the way. So, welcome to a new review. This is, okay, the Focal Elear. Now the first thing that strikes me about these headphones is, okay, I may be biased here, but I think these look spectacular. I think this is the nicest looking pair of headphones that I've ever owned. And, okay, let's talk about build quality really quickly. It's very sturdy. I know there was a review video of the Utopia which made it sound very creaky. This is not so creaky. This is actually quite sturdy. It doesn't rotate so much, but it doesn't really matter to me because the comfort is spectacular. Your ears just go in here, and these memory foam air pads, which are very soft and very luxurious, they just makes them disappear on your head. This side. However, they are quite heavy. It's about 450 grams without the cable, and we'll get to the cable in a minute. But yeah, I would definitely about 120 grams heavier than the HD 800 by Sennheiser. So keep that in mind, guys, if you want to consider these. But I would say the weight distribution is very nicely done, much better than the HE 500 by Hi-Fi Man, and also much better than the T50RP mod, which is the Omni by ZMF. The reason for this is just how nicely these seal on my head. Once again, really soft air pads. Also, the top part, this headband, is very plush. Now, it doesn't utilize anything like... It doesn't have an insane amount of cushioning, but it has a very, very good amount of cushioning. That this is pretty much all you need for these headphones because they aren't dragging you down so much. So on the side, you have these metal rims, and they adjust as such. So incremental. These don't just get pulled over your head and then you can adjust them accordingly without any incremental adjustments. So that's how this is done. And so on the side you have the actual grill. These are very open, guys. Like you can see right through them quite often. Right now, okay, I'm not in the right light right now, so maybe you can't see right through, but these are very open. Do not spill anything into these cans. There's a very, very, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what the driver design is, something about an M-dome, a very thin driver. You do not want to mess that up with these headphones, okay? Don't avoid, because these are very open. Do not have anything touch these and dust them quite often. Don't let dust touch them or anything like that. But yeah, very nice looking pair of headphones. On the side you'll see it says Elear Fabrique France and aluminium magnesium. Alright, so that's the build quality. Let's talk about the sound. First of all, straight off the bat, sorry, one last thing about the build. We have to talk about the cable. This huge thing in my hand right now is the cable that comes with these pair of headphones, terminating in a 1/4-inch adapter. This is 4 meters long, or 13 feet. Massive cable, and look how thick it is. It's double-sided over here, and it terminates in 2 3.5 millimeter jacks. So not proprietary, very easy to get an aftermarket cable for these. So that's one really huge advantage, because this cable is huge, really thick like a VCR cable, and very heavy. It's adding to the weight. So definitely get an aftermarket cable, guys, but make sure it's good quality because, you know, even though this is heavy and well shielded, no microphonics in this cable. This is a very nice cable. So if that doesn't bother you, you can use it. I've been using it. I'm totally fine with it. And now, sorry for that little detour. Back to the sound quality. The first thing you'll notice about listening to these is that the bass is boosted quite a bit. It doesn't go into the territory where it bleeds into the mids or anything like that. No, there's quite well separated, but it has a boosted quality to it, which makes it quite similar to, like, if you look at the difference between the HD600, which is more neutral, and the HD650, which has a bit of a bass boost to it. This is a bit like that bass boost. The sub bass extends quite low, not nearly as low as the THX100 by Mastrop and Fostex. Nope. But it extends about as low as my ZMF Omni does, which is a 90% closed headphone. So that's quite admirable from this because I love a good amount of bass. There's a good amount of mid bass too, which has a nice slam to it, which comes into handy in lots of things like EDM, electropop music and all that sort of stuff. But it sounds very good with metal too because it's very fast. It's a very fast pair of headphones, so you'll have like the double bass kick in really nicely in metal music and stuff like that. It'll be nice and clear. It won't be sluggish at all, keeping up with like the fast pace of the drum beat. The mid range or the lower mid range is quite warm, which I actually really like a lot about this because it sounds very similar to the Omni in that regard, whereas it makes acoustic guitars sound really, really realistic. Like strummed acoustic instruments, really realistic sounding, and male vocals sound very full-bodied and natural in this headphone. The mid-range itself is very detailed, not as detailed, of course, as the more laid-back, strident kind of sound that the HD800 provides, but it is quite detailed, more detailed than the Omni, more detailed than the HE500. But the HE500 has a certain liquidy, syrupy, flamboyant language used here, quality to it, which makes vocals sound very, very pleasing. This doesn't have that quite as much, but I would actually say this separates vocal layering better. So the reason for that, now this is the main characteristic of the sound of these headphones, is that they have a very chunky sound. They're not very linear sounding. Now the other headphones I've been mentioning right now have a more linear sound to them. This puts music out in batches. This will throw music at the listener and make sure that you pay attention, because this has an incredible sense of dynamics in the audio. Like if you're listening to, let's say, a song with like a lot of piano in it, if there's a huge piano chord being played, you will hear it in your chest. That's how impactful it sounds with these pair of headphones. That is very impressive to me, and that is the main characteristic of this headphone, is that it'll throw sound out at you. Now it doesn't. If you're listening to a song, like when I mean batch production, what I mean is if you're listening to a song and there's a lot of different things going on at once, it will throw everything out at you in equal measure. You won't feel like something is being held back by something else. Like in more linear headphones, something comes to the forefront while everything else falls into the supporting role in the background. This doesn't do that. This throws everything at you. It can take a little while to get used to when you first get these, but I find that to be its best feature. The fact that it has music coming out of it in a way a speaker does, which makes sense because Focal is primarily a speaker company who have just recently released these two headphones into the audio market, high-end headphones. So I find that to be very engaging listening. These are not laid back, not relaxed. Don't sit down at your table and have these on in the background while you're trying to do some work. I mean, you can zone it out like I do. I'm used to them now. But at first, you'll be quite distracted by just how much sound pops out at you, how the crisp sound of an acoustic guitar being soloed over. You can read about that more in my review. Just this crisp sound of an acoustic guitar solo will just pop out at you because the treble on these is fantastic. The treble is it's a little dipped in a certain region, in the upper mids and lower treble, so it doesn't sound sibilant at all, but it can sound slightly dark to some people, even to me actually. Slightly dark sounding because even female vocals in the higher ranges, they sound a little stifled, just a tiny bit. And if you're listening to if you're listening to classical music with old production methods, which are a little more muddy in production, like Led Zeppelin's first few albums, that can sound a little problematic on these, just a little bit, not much, not as much as the Omni does. The Omni has a lot of problem with that, but that can sound a little problematic on this because you'll feel like you're losing. You feel like it's being played to you from behind like a sheet of paper or something. It's not as clear as it could be. But from my experience, the headphone that can replicate those kinds of recordings the best is the HD800 by Sennheiser. For everything else, though, this has a deep and rich sound to it, detailed, rich, and if you have modern production methods, this will shine. This will shine. Every instrument will come out very clearly. It'll come out clearly, but the soundstage is not that vast. The soundstage is actually quite comparable to, I would say, the HT600 and the Hi-Fi-Man HE400i. It's not nearly as vast or large and expansive. The imaging isn't as precise as the HT800, which is the same price range, but because of the detailed nature of it, it doesn't really bother me that much. Like if stuff doesn't get drowned out by each other, like if music I'm listening to doesn't feel like it's being drowned, certain instruments don't feel like they're being overlapped by something else, it doesn't really matter to me how big the soundstage is, because there's enough room in this for everything to shine. And by that room, I mean the detailed mids, like everything. Just because of the treble, okay, like I talked about the treble, the upper mid's a little dipped, the lower treble's a little dipped, so you'll have like no sibilance, which is great. But the further on in the treble, about the 10K peak, it comes back up all of a sudden, and you have a very nice resolving sound up there. It really makes the snare drum hit really hard. Now, I really, really like that, because if you're listening to, like, say, EDM, rock music, metal music, anything like that, you will have the slam, because for a good slam in headphones, you need a good snap. Now, the snap comes from the treble and the bass. The bass is also important in slam, and then the bass is present here. So you'll have probably the best slam I've heard outside of a V-shaped headphone. And that is great to me because I love mids. So with the THX100, you have a nice slam to it because of the V-shaped or W-shaped, some people say, nature. But this will have a much more pleasing overall sound with that snap, with that slam. Very satisfying snare sound. And because of that treble extension, it has a very satisfying sound with, like I said, acoustic instruments. If you're listening to orchestral music, you'll get a good amount of air around the instruments. Not nearly as good as the HD800, but much better than anything else I've had to review before. So I think that covers the sound pretty much, I guess. Okay, yeah, just to go over it really quickly. Has a nice batch production method of putting sound out to you. It has a very nice mid-range, which it isn't extremely rich like the HE500, but it's detailed and it's still very present. Like, I listened to The Weeknd, and his voice comes out quite clearly, all the vocal layering and everything. I don't feel left wanting from them. The bass is a little bumped, but it's very pleasing in how much it's bumped. Doesn't bleed into the mids. It doesn't sound overly distorted either. So that's really good. And I haven't EQ'd these or anything. I don't really EQ my headphones, so I haven't bumped up the bass anymore to see how much it goes till it gets distorted. So I can't answer that question if you have it. Yeah, I would say because of the looks, comfort, sound quality, and the fact that it has, okay, this is a small minor thing, but the fact that it has a detachable cable. I mean, the THX100 doesn't, and that has a huge cable too, so I'm quite annoyed about that. The fact that all these things come together to give a really nice, engaging musical experience makes these my new favorite headphones, guys. Quite simply, my new favorite headphones, and the strongest recommendation I have for a headphone, which is $1,000. The strongest recommendation. I would recommend that you all try this first, which might be a bit hard because even I had to wait for quite a while on the wait list for these to get in my possession. But if you do get a chance to try them out, please do. Try out all your favorite music with it, and you'll hear a difference in how sound is shown. You really will hear a difference. So it's just, to sum it up, guys, I mean, I have a lot more. There'll be the comparison video, the unboxing video, my full review as well. Overall, just a great, chunky sound from a great looking pair of headphones. And my new favorite. This has taken the place of at least 2 headphones in my collection right now, which I think I will be selling now. So that's been my review, and thank you for watching.